Welcome to Library Out Loud, SCLD. I'm Erin Dodge, Communications Specialist with the library. Today I talked to Sean Jonz, Program Manager of the Alzheimer's Association, working here in Eastern Washington. We talk about the upcoming library program, Empowered Caregivers, the Memory Cafe that's starting in March at Spokane Valley Library, and also ways that you can volunteer and help or get resources and information directly from the Alzheimer's Association website. Stick around, you won't want to miss this. Hello, Sean. Thank you for being here today. We're talking about the Alzheimer's Association and some different programs we have going on. And for anybody who might not be familiar with the topic today, can you tell us, kind of give us a little quick overview of what Alzheimer's disease versus dementia versus memory loss? I've heard those terms all over. Sure. I'm not sure what's what.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me, Erin. I really appreciate it. That's a question that's pretty frequent. We get that one a lot. And what I like to tell people is dementia is the large umbrella term.
Okay.
And so Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia.
I see.
So there's typically 4 or 5 main types of dementia, but dementia is the big umbrella term.
Okay.
And the main significant difference when we start talking about, what's a warning sign or something specific that could be concerning regarding Alzheimer's or dementia versus just standard memory loss, is there's the typical aging process, which all of us will go through, and so we'll all have, some memory loss. And if it's normally part of the aging process, it's going to be occasionally.
Okay.
Right? And so the main significant difference is if it's happening consistently, daily, and is a massive kind of impediment to somebody living their life in a normal fashion, that tends to be a warning sign that it could be Alzheimer's or dementia. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm getting older.
Sure.
My husband's getting older, and a couple of things were like, oof, should we talk to the doctor? Because things like, forgetting where the keys are, or, what was I doing when I walked in? I wanted to do when I walked in the room. And so it's like, what do we need to be worried about? So you're going to basically...
And I also think that's a good point because, absolutely, that happens to all of us, right? I think the main difference for that particular scenario is that you can probably retrace your steps or figure out where you might have misplaced the keys. Somebody with Alzheimer's and dementia, they're not going to have the faculties about them to be able to do that. And so that's where it ends up becoming kind of concerning.
Perfect. Okay. And so you're, you just raised some awareness there for me. So what is your role in raising awareness for Alzheimer's Association Eastern Washington? What do you do?
As the Eastern Washington program manager, so I'm kind of focused on 2 pillars. Okay. One is kind of designed for community outreach.
Sure.
And so I do the majority of our educational and awareness presentations. Like at the library, I speak a lot at conferences, at assisted living, senior centers, basically anybody where they're going to be impacted or interacting with individuals that might have Alzheimer's or dementia. If you think about it now, right, there's really not any business that's not going to have interactions like that. And so businesses, they're much more likely at this point to want to reach out to get really specific training. Like we just started doing some trainings for banks and credit unions on what to look for to see if somebody might be showing signs that they might have Alzheimer's or dementia. How's the best way to communicate with that person? And we're also really trying to focus on transportation companies. So we've been working with the Spokane Transit Authority. We're starting to work with the airport. So in all these travel scenarios, the bus drivers and airport workers, giving them the skill set where they would be able to hopefully have a more successful interaction if they were to meet somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia. So community outreach, and again, it covers all of Eastern Washington, so we are trying to get more kind of rural outreach as well. And then the other thing that I focus on is volunteer recruitment and retention. So the Alzheimer's Association, we're a nonprofit organization. We rely heavily on volunteers, so they end up facilitating our support groups and our memory cafes. They will help us like when it comes to tabling events, like
Sure.
at health fairs, things like that.
Yeah.
So I work very hard to try to build up our roster
Yeah.
of volunteers.
That's great.
So those are kind of my two main focuses.
Okay. Yeah, and then we have you're leading a 5-part workshop at the library coming up starting January 27th, so really soon. And what can attendees expect to learn during the series? Probably a little bit of what you already talked about. Yeah.
Sure.
With the kind of tips and
Yeah, and I think,
insights.
so we have a large library of presentations. So we can kind of, we'll design and structure it around whatever the needs are of the people
Okay.
we're presenting to. So this specific one is one that we just rolled out last year, and it's called the Empowered Caregiver.
Yes.
So it's a 5-part series,
Okay.
and it's designed specifically for caregivers that are caregiving for somebody who has Alzheimer's or dementia.
Yes.
So one of the modules is on communicating effectively,
Right.
supporting independence, managing behaviors,
Yes.
being able to recognize and access supports and services
Well,
in the area.
All of these are things you can learn, right? I don't
For
think
sure.
you come out the gate knowing how to do all of that.
Right.
I wouldn't imagine.
And there's not any, caregivers in general have the most difficult job in
Absolutely.
the world. And I mean,
Absolutely.
the work that they do is utterly amazing. And it's especially, it's especially hard if you're taking care of a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia.
Right.
And so we're trying to the best of our ability, we're trying to provide
Yeah.
tools and supports
Yes.
for people to try to understand what is going to be the best method or
Yes.
approach to be able to successfully care for somebody that might have Alzheimer's or dementia.
Yeah, I think I've seen a few videos online where I've seen some little bits of advice that folks have given that are in that situation. I've learned some tools, and when they talk about it, I'm like, that makes perfect sense, because I think about sort of my own situation, and I had a mother-in-law with dementia and Alzheimer's, so 2 different ones coexisting. And my sister-in-law cared for her at home, like actually, and the couple times, this is back in California, we're here now, a couple times I visited, I was like, I don't know what to do in this situation, but she did.
Right.
And so it was just really incredible to see, like I just got too emotional, like I didn't know what to do, and I got, a little frustrated, but, and a little bit upset that I didn't have the knowledge, but she did. And I thought that was incredible. She was doing incredible. So I love that this workshop is going to give people those tools and skills.
Yeah, and I think another big thing that we're really focused on in kind of all of our, we start talking about the presentations that I give, our kind of imprint in the community, our support groups, our memory cafes, all of those are designed to kind of reduce the stigma
Okay.
that's attached with Alzheimer's and dementia.
Right.
Because I often get the question, well, why are there so many more people now getting diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia, right? Which is that's a legitimate question.
Absolutely.
Number one, our population is aging,
Yes.
right? So there's more people kind of in that age bracket.
Yep.
The other thing is just we're much more educated as a society
Right.
on what is Alzheimer's dementia. Those signs might have 40, 50 years ago, maybe those would be dismissed,
Right.
and there wouldn't be anybody seeking a medical diagnosis or attention.
Right.
But because of those two things, we're seeing a lot more people that are getting diagnosed.
Yes.
And with that, we're trying to get kind of ahead of the curve by trying to offer all of these educational awareness presentations
Yeah.
so people can have that knowledge
Yes.
before they're kind of behind the 8 ball and then they're trying to play catch up.
And there is some preventative, I know there's some preventative like medicines and things that they've developed that can kind of help early on a little bit, I've heard, anyway.
There is, yeah. And one thing I would mention, if you go to our website, which is alz.org.
Which for those of us watching and not just listening, we do have up on this little screen right here. So we're there.
Yeah, so if you go to our website, you can get current, up-to-date information when it comes to any sort of new
Okay.
medical.
Yeah, there's a research tab,
Yep.
a local resources tab.
Because what I like to tell people is this is a very exciting time. I mean, we're truly on the cusp of some major medical breakthroughs. And yeah, they do have some medicines now at this point that can really help relieve symptoms to somebody who's in the early stages of
Okay.
Alzheimer's or dementia. They now have a blood test that you can take which I've been told is up to 90% accurate
Oh, wow.
versus previous tests, which were more around 50%.
Okay.
It's constantly evolving and changing.
Sure.
Another thing you can access on our website is, I recommend if people really want to get involved, you can kind of find what clinical trials are
Okay.
available that you might want to participate in. And that goes for people that don't have a diagnosis as well as those
Okay.
that do.
And where would we find that? Research?
It should be under research, yeah.
All right. Research in progress, maybe? Yeah. Early diagnosis. Can it be prevented? Milestones, clinical trials right there.
So that's a great way for people to be involved, because like what I like to tell people is that without full participation in clinical trials, I mean, that's how new medicines,
Yes.
all of that gets created from clinical trials.
Right.
And so that's really what needs to be focused on. And the Alzheimer's Association, I would say almost 100% of any sort of fundraising that we do, that's all put into research, right?
Oh, wow.
Our mission is we want to live in a world that's 100% free of Alzheimer's
Sure.
dementia. So if I could eventually be out of a job, that would be amazing.
Sounds
because
good.
that's what we want.
Yes.
But until we get to that point, we also want to make sure people have the ability to see, okay, what resources, what supports are out there.
Right.
We want to have people focus on, early detection.
Yes.
The earlier they can get something diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
So we also want to focus on that until we're at the point where hopefully, ideally, we're able to find a cure for Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you also talked about the volunteers that you recruit. So if somebody was listening or watching and said, I want to volunteer, they can come to the Alzheimer's Association page, and then they can find more local resources. I'm
Yep.
going to go to local resources, and then you put in, that is not where we're at.
But yeah, that is the page where you would put in where you're trying to find resources.
All right, so I'm going to put in kind of the library here where we're at, and I'm going to submit that, and then, that didn't quite go through, but I will do state. And then under Washington State chapter, I know that there's a Spokane one. I went there. Oh, I don't want to go in there. Not donate now. No, I'm looking. Well, if you do want to donate, you can also go there and donate.
You can donate it there for sure.
All right.
But yeah, on the website,
yeah.
you are able to find, again, in your local area,
Yes.
you'll be able to find what are the current caregiver support groups
Right.
that we provide, what memory cafes are out there that we also do, and then normally you'll also see presentations listed of where we might be offering information.
Become an advocate.
Yeah. So
Group facilitators, yeah.
and what it requires is, when it comes to becoming a volunteer, people, they apply online. There's a registration application, which will then get sent to me. Normally, I will have talked to these people ahead of time and let them know what it entails.
Okay.
Once we approve that, there's a specific volunteer role they can choose. They can be a community educator.
Okay.
They could be a support group facilitator.
Okay.
They could also be an advocate, which is, and that's coming up here pretty soon. We have advocates that we will bring with us
Okay.
to talk to legislators.
Oh, great.
And so
Yes.
I know they're going to Olympia, I think on February 2nd or 3rd.
Okay.
We have a team of advocates.
Yeah.
And so we work really closely with them to make sure that they know what it is, the specific bills that we're
Right.
trying to get, this is going to be a difficult time for us to advocate
Sure,
for more
sure.
money. So we're really hopeful that we're just not going to have anything significantly slashed
Right.
at this point.
Yes.
But advocacy is big. A lot of our volunteers will start out as a volunteer and then
Work.
kind of get a little more
Yes.
into it and want to become an advocate. So all of that's very exciting.
Yes.
And then, so once you choose your role, then you'll have some online training modules that are designed for that specific role. And then there's a background check.
Nice.
Because I want to make
Yes.
sure everybody understands that anybody that we have as a volunteer, they have
Yes.
been fully background checked.
The library does
So-
that as well.
Absolutely,
Yes,
as they
absolutely,
should.
yes.
For sure. But yeah, if anybody is watching this or hears this and wants to become part of our team to help
Yeah.
with the battle against Alzheimer's and dementia, we would love anybody who wants to join us.
Excellent.
Our Tuesday Memory Cafes at North Spokane Library are friendly, weekly gatherings that offer a community space for those navigating memory loss and their caregivers. Every Tuesday at 11 a.m., Stop into the library to connect and participate in activities, all selected to promote mental acuity, health, and wellness. Memory cafes are a comfortable way to connect with other caregivers and people experiencing memory loss. Be part of something special where understanding and support go hand in hand.
And you've mentioned this a few times, and it just popped up again, Memory Cafe. So we have a Memory Cafe currently up at North Spokane, and that's been going on weekly for a while. But we're starting one in Spokane Valley, and you're helping with that, is my understanding.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
it's, I believe, March. We're starting in March. So
Yep.
what, for folks who don't know, never heard of a Memory Cafe, what is it? What kinds of things happen at a Memory Cafe?
Yeah, and I think the thing that differentiates a Memory Cafe versus our standard support group is our support groups are designed exclusively for caregivers.
Okay.
Memory Cafe is the caregiver and care receiver, so the individual that has the Alzheimer's diagnosis, they go to the Memory Cafe together.
Okay.
And it's designed as a social engagement activity. One thing you'll see fairly consistently is once somebody gets a diagnosis, social opportunities really get limited and they can get super isolated.
Yes.
And so what we're trying to do is at a minimum once or twice a month, we're trying to offer opportunities where the caregiver and care receiver can have a nice time to go to an activity. And with the Memory Cafe, we do things like, a lot of times we'll have music there. We'll have maybe some exercise, super easy exercise things set up, or we'll have maybe some arts and crafts that are maybe designed around that month's holiday.
Nice.
So all of our facilitators that do Memory Cafes, they're super, super creative.
Yeah.
But the Memory Cafe is really, it's fun, it's really inspirational. And so we're really trying to expand the number of those that we offer. So the Alzheimer's Association, we're thrilled to partner with the library for that one in the Valley. So
Yes.
and again, that does start March 10th.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, we're excited for that.
You just reminded me, a few months ago, I had a guest from the symphony on, and he was talking about how they would go in every now and then to Memory Cafe and play some music, and how he really enjoyed that. He was like thrilled with it. And he was talking a little bit about how music sometimes just bypasses all of our sort of everything in the brain. Like it can just touch a fundamental part of you that can open up memories or open up feelings that people have, and I like that.
And I will give them a shout out because I'm assuming he must be referring to Project Joy.
There we go.
So Project Joy, which is an amazing nonprofit, we will use them 2 or 3 times a year to come and play music.
Absolutely.
And the cool thing about Project Joy is they have a variety of different musicians who play a variety of music. So depending on what you want to focus on, and so the ones that have been really popular is like, we'll have individuals come that are just playing an acoustic guitar and they're singing maybe, rock songs from the 60s and 70s. And it's amazing how much the individual with Alzheimer's and dementia, they'll remember the lyrics and they really, they really, really enjoy it. So Project Joy, if anybody hasn't heard of it, they do an amazing job.
Yes, they do. That's awesome. So you just talked about the Empowered Caregivers Workshop, and a little bit, you kind of went over some of the things that folks will be learning. So this is for caregivers, and can you just talk a little bit more about it? Like if I'm a new caregiver, if I'm new to it, like what can I expect to get out of that workshop? I know you said you're going to personalize it. So if I have a come with a bunch of questions, like what happens when my loved one kind of gets a lot out of control or something.
So one of the modules is specifically designed on managing behaviors.
Okay.
And so each module is about 45 minutes, and so we leave about 15 minutes for questions. Okay. But yeah, there is one specifically designed on, in fact, what do I do if this particular behavior is displayed? What's an appropriate response? Because you have to essentially relearn everything you've been taught in how you interact with somebody.
Yes.
You have to almost do the exact opposite of what you would do with a normal functioning person.
Sure.
So you really do have to retrain your brain and yourself on how to do that. So that's one of the modules that focuses specifically on that. One of them is focused on what's the best way to communicate with a person that has Alzheimer's or dementia, because the unique thing about Alzheimer's and dementia is that it being a progressive disease, everybody's journey on it is absolutely unique to them. And so you will have some people that they might get that diagnosis and then you will see a rapid decline almost instantaneously.
Wow.
Others will maintain a certain skill level for a long, long time. And so anybody that you've chatted with who has a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia, every single person's journey is absolutely personal and unique.
Yes.
And so what we're trying to do, and again, our presentation, the Empowered Caregiver, it's not necessarily designed exclusively for caregivers.
Okay.
It's also designed for people that might potentially at some point in their life become a caregiver.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of transferable skills. Even if you're not a caregiver for somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia, you might be a caregiver for somebody who has some sort of complex medical needs.
Sure.
And so I think there's a lot of transferable skills that can apply to almost anybody.
Okay.
I think at its core it's designed for caregivers, but I also think it's a little bit of a wider thing to that. And then I think one of the big things that we try to focus on too is, once you have the diagnosis, what's available? What supports do you need? What resources should you try to access in the community? So we try to really talk through what are the best avenues to go through. And that's one of the things, again, on our website.
Back to the website, I was just thinking that. So let's go, we kind of went through the volunteer portal. So if we go back.
And the other thing I will plug on our website, which is an absolute lifesaver, so we have a 24/7 helpline.
Right there, right at the top.
So previous to this position, I worked as a case manager for caregivers that were caring for somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia. And this is an absolute lifesaver, the 24/7 helpline. So you can call that at any point. It's manned by, we have licensed social workers, we have licensed therapists. So, I used to have caregivers, they would call it at 2 a.m, right? And they were just literally at their breaking point.
Right.
And you can talk to a therapist for 2-3 hours.
Okay.
Totally free.
Wow.
And so not only that, you can get a care consultation.
Okay.
And so you're like, hey, I think my dad's been showing some of these signs. I wanted to chat with somebody. And so they'll do an actual care consultation and then they'll connect you to a resource navigator that can kind of let you know this is what's available in the community and kind of get you pointed in the right direction. So it's an awesome, totally free service. The other thing I like to emphasize, anything the Alzheimer's Association does in the community, it's free.
Right.
Our support groups are free. Yeah. Our memory cafes are free. Any presentation I ever do is free. We want this to be a resource that everybody is accessible to because we're trying to get the word out and awareness increased to the largest swath of people that we can.
Yeah.
So if you ever run into anything where the Alzheimer's Association is charging something, then that's not an actual Alzheimer's Association event.
That's somebody
So
scamming.
It should always be free when our name's attached to something.
Great. And I see that there is a help and support option here, and then you can, go down to like caregiving or community brain health. You have lots of different resources. We were talking about different resources. So there's a ton of resources here.
There is. And the other nice thing too, just about support groups for a second, COVID changed, our lives and our corporate lives. And so we have a ton of virtual support groups now. And so if you search for support groups and you're not wanting to physically go, there's a ton you can access and just do it through Zoom. So that's another option that people have as well.
Great.
And we were kind of chatting about the one that I facilitated yesterday. We also have a book club caregiver support group, which is really nice. Over in Seattle, we'll have like men's only support groups. We'll have ones that are designed for people that are in the early stages. And so I think we're also trying to create new support groups to have a kind of as varied approach as possible and offering the widest opportunities. And so we're really trying to, again, increase everybody's access. And so whatever barriers are in place for us to be able to deliver information to people, we're really trying to work through those to make sure everybody has access to getting that information, because it's important. It can be a life-saving information.
It can be.
Yeah.
Well, Sean, this has been a lot of information. It's great. I recommend that folks go to the Alzheimer's Association website, alz.org. We're going to have links in the description
Awesome.
for this podcast, so they should find it. You also wrote a blog post for us.
I did.
And that will be live very soon, if not already. And that has links right in it, too, to different things that you talk about in that blog post. So thank you so much for being here today and for
Absolutely.
working with the library and getting all this great information out to the community and the folks who need
Well, I
it.
appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.